Well, it has been less than 24 hours, and it's sad to say that we went from New Japan really putting their best foot forward, being professional and taking matters seriously in the middle of a 7.0 earthquake to taking 2 steps back and having one of the most problematic finishes to a great tournament. I'm not going to reshare the video. It's circulating out there. You can see that obviously Will Ospreay won, and afterwards, out of nowhere, with no rhyme or reason whatsoever, and a very poor produced promo with Kota Ibushi, attacked his girlfriend, Bae Priestley. So these are some of the comments that I wanted to hit home on Twitter that are making the most sense, because it seems like people are throwing stones from both sides of the fence, and the people that have critical thinking, understanding, logic, and reason towards the situation and bringing good points up in the conversation are getting lost in the shuffle. They're getting swept underneath the rug because it's more, you're right, I'm wrong, but let's critically think for a moment, because as adults with brains, we can do that. So I just wanted to highlight some of the, really good conversation pieces that are going on right now in light of a bad situation that happened in New Japan. Super J-Cast, want to applaud those guys. They were the first guys to react to this. Just going to go through a couple of their series, some tweets, some other people that brought up different ways that could have been better to have handled this situation and made Will go over and still had some heel heat and not problematic heat. So let's go through it right now. Super J-Cast, really stupid. I can see what Ospreay was trying to do, but in my opinion, using domestic violence as a vehicle to show how much he wants to be a champion is gross. And I don't like it at all. People rightly like to dunk on Will. He has a long history of being problematic with his social media accounts. Everything he does in the ring is phenomenal, but then he finds a way to just destroy it by his social media presence or his post-match comments. There was a long time he refused to be interviewed by Chris Van Vliet because he just didn't want an open mic, because he was afraid of himself, because he doesn't have that filter. People are rightly like to dunk on Will, and now he's upset. And now he's up setting up trampolines next to himself. So it was already bad enough. He's making matters worse by even doing this. I really don't understand the logical booking behind doing some blatant weird work in trying to involve domestic violence in some way, shape, or form. But now he's setting up trampolines next to himself. Idiot. I got to agree with that. It really was the shit topping on a good Sunday. And you could tell why legends right now in New Japan like Kota Ibushi, Kazuchika Okada, and Tanahashi didn't want to be near this with a 10-foot pole and were nowhere near ringside to be found. So another one that they did was like, he wanted to engage in a counter argument. The Super J-Cast was like, look, if you enjoyed the angle, then good for you. But we can start hand waving to people who disliked it or upset by it because it's only fiction. That's kind of the counter argument going around. It's that it's only fiction. Like, it's only wrestling is wrestling. It's only fiction. We all experience things differently. It's not an angle people knowingly signed up to see. You don't go to a wrestling show and anticipate a weird domestic violence work to happen. Maybe if you go to Monday Night Raw with that whole nonsense with Rusev and Lana and Randy Orton attacking people, but you hold New Japan to a higher standard, that they're going to have a benchmark and they're not going to dip into this cheap heat and attention pool. And I just don't get it. He continues on. I'm staggered by the number of people who don't understand the difference between an intergender wrestling match. I've talked about those. We've seen the cutest tag team with Joey Ryan wrestle the Young Bucks, and that's an intergender wrestling match. And a guy launching an unprovoked attack and an unexpected physical attack on his girlfriend, which is what happened last night. Is it really that difficult to see the distinction between the two? I don't think it is. And I think if you're old enough and if you're mature enough, you realize that this was just tone deaf. There was no point into it. There was no advancement. If you're going to write Bea Priestley off and have her go back to Stardom, there's better ways of doing it than Will giving her a cutter in the middle of the ring. It took all of the air out of the ring. You could tell that the fans were in dismay. You could tell that even the English commentary team didn't see it coming. Kayfabe aside, they probably knew that Will was going to win, but they didn't know what was going to happen next. It really caught Kevin Kelly off guard. You could tell Gino was just sitting there going, what the hell? Because he said what twice. They didn't understand it. They didn't get it. And then they had to quickly improvise on their feet to try to rationalize some narrative moving forward. Yes. And then another argument is, yes, the nuclear heat of a completely silent arena and baffled commentators, really great heat. Good job. No, you can tell that it sucked the air out of the room like a backdraft. It did not have a good effect. It was a black hole of the New Japan Cup. It took away from everything that those guys did. If I was David Finlay right now, I would hate that my hard work in the ring, putting on a great match, was upstaged by a silly work that should have never been there in the first place. That's what people are going to walk away with from, is the controversy of what Will did versus some great wrestling and great matches that happened. And then commentator from Thomas Island and co-host Ross Berman literally just went, what the F? There's heat, and then there's actively driving a segment of the fan base away, and I'm seeing the latter. Couldn't agree more with Ross in that regard. Someday, New Japan will realize that women are a large part of the North American fan base. This is what they've been trying to get a foothold in, is advancing into the North American fan base. Obviously, they had to pause some of their movement moving forward in light of a pandemic world and had to create other opportunities with New Japan Strong. But this is not one of those days. It's an honest shame. I couldn't agree with Ross more. They really alienated any of the female fan base. And there's some weird, wacky female fans that are defending Will, but this is really one of those weird things. It's just like, you need to walk away from it. There's no rhyme or reason behind it. Continuing Ross's comments, at the end of the day, the reason people don't like the WWE is because of the utter contempt that the WWE has for their audience. In the past few years, they have continued to be unable to meet the audience's needs halfway. That contempt is growing in multitude. New Japan is taking that same road now, and I couldn't agree more. Gato's had solid booking. I don't know if this was a brain fart, but it's very tone deaf, and it came off that way. Now, one of my fellow friends on Twitter kind of provided how you could have constructively done this. The problem is they took something and they gave it to Will, and they didn't really work through it, and it came off very badly. That's what happens when there's no handler for somebody that's that problematic and can't function well. He needs horse blinders. He needs direction. He needs to be told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and what to say. If you leave too much area open, bad things are going to happen. So Jeff decided to put out here, how hard would it have been to give her credit for his success, saying that he had finally accomplished what he set out to do. He's been trying to grab that brass ring in New Japan. He's been trying to obtain this level to show that he's put on the weight. He's a faction leader. And Bay helped him all throughout the way in the last year, try to get to this milestone. He tells her he loves her and that he has to take care of Ibushi by himself. She can go take care of business and Stardom. Simple, easy, onward. But no, they picked the most weirdest thing to do. And I agree with Jeff on this idea that would have been the nice thing. You know, you wouldn't have had a weird finish that everybody's going to sit there scratching their heads with. And it creates a great send-off for her. And that you can really hit home that Will wants to be his own man and carve out his own path. And then it adds stakes to the match of him wanting to go against Ibushi. He won clean against Shingo. So then you go and do something rando like this as a heel. I just don't understand it. So I wanted to get it out there. Obviously, I was singing their praises less than shy of 12 hours ago, but I'm sitting here scratching my head. Not mad. I'm just really disappointed that they decided to go this route. They really hit home, and I've been a fan for years, that this is professional sports-based wrestling, that they're not going to go dip into the WWE random access files of nonsense and weirdness and problematic story angles, that they're just going to focus on in-ring competition and create quality wrestling. They had quality wrestling, and then they added WWE antics at the end. So moving forward with this channel, personally, I'm not going to discuss Will Ospreay. He seems to be a black hole that needs attention any way possible. He goes out of his way to be the victim sometimes. He does these stunts. He acts horrid on social media. He's unbecoming of a good wrestler in New Japan. The people that have been products of the dojo set themselves aside and show that they are a professional in this atmosphere. And those are the people that I respect and admire. So you can enjoy Will in the ring. He's just not my cup of tea. So the Empire will not be mentioned here moving forward, which is a disservice because I really like Jeff Cobb. He's a guy who went from being an Olympian in the Summer Olympics to has carved his own path. He's a BOLA winner at PWG. And now the problem is how this explodes eventually down the line, he's going to get some flack and he's going to get some shrapnel on him for being guilty by association. I really hope that doesn't happen. But in this day and age, you don't know. So I feel bad for Jeff. Don't feel bad for Will. And just disappointed at New Japan as a whole. So that's my comments for now. Hope you're enjoying wrestling. I hope your promotions are not as problematic or weird and awkwardly situational as this is right now. It was a phenomenal New Japan Cup, one of the better New Japan Cups in a long time. But like I said, it's just turd syrup on a good quality Sunday. And overall, at the end of the day, you're just eating shit and having to sit there and take it with a grin on your face. But hopefully they get ahead of this. They do something. They put out a statement because it's just really alienating to the female fan base. Have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next video.